Hello everyone, welcome back to the Ineffable. Welcome if you're new here. This is an astrology channel where we talk about the times as they change throughout the year through different lenses of the different archetypes, watching the different planets as they move around and watching how we relate to them within our own systems. I would firstly like to ask you about your Libra. Where does Libra fall in the chart for you? Where does this equinox point sit within your chart? Although it's supposed to be associated with the 7th house and with relationships and with a sense of otherness, collective energy, this is the start of the collective season. For someone like me, this is my first house, which is completely the opposite end of the spectrum. So I'd like to just, as this is Libran energy, it's all about tapping into the other and what is happening for the other and seeing how that's then reflected in ourselves. I'd like you to engage with the fact that we are not all on the same page, not at all. We're coming not only from very different backgrounds, different countries, different planes of existence, different genders, different ways of seeing the world. We also have completely different, unique birth charts. Even twins, they have a difference because as the minutes tick by, so does the ascendant point on the 360 degrees of birth chart. So it's very, very important with this Libran energy to tap into the differentness and the uniqueness between all of us. There's so many ways the Libra can manifest, and we are always trying to get to that balanced, harmonious place, but it's so easy to tip in one way or another when it comes to feeling that there is only one way of being, there is only one set of beliefs, and therefore we then really tap into the dualistic world, which is a trap. We get caught up in this binary polarity of existence in the senses that it's not real. And I think this is very interestingly reflected in the idea of non-binary people. I think that's a wonderful thing to have a kind of fluid gender, and you can see that in your own chart. You can see, if you look at mine and Ricardo's relationship, Sagittarius is very masculine, but so is Aries. But if you look at our moons, I have an Aries moon that is much more imposing and pushing out and kind of active, whilst his Virgo moon is very inward and kind of tranquilo and passive. And it's interesting when you look at our charts, you see a huge mixture of masculine and feminine energies coming through. It's completely non-binary, and yet he has a penis and I have a vagina, and that is biological fact. And I think it's really curious what's happening with the movements at the moment of tapping into a non-binary way of being, which is fabulous. It's fantastic. It's non-duality. It's more consciousness rather than kind of stripping us back to less and less and less. And that is what I'm all about, especially with astrology. It's tapping in to this divine masculine, divine feminine, divine eunuch, divine sexual being, holding all cards at once, and holding these supposedly completely diametric polarities as one, and being in the center of that, and being kind of this master of energy that can buzz from this central place. But so easily, as with politics, as with any kind of just like, for example, the bringing down woman to mean just a small box of things, or beauty or something to mean just a small thing, instead of like really zooming in and expanding the meanings behind all of these things and seeing where there's overlap, especially in terms of the energy someone gives off, the facial appearance and body structure, and all of these things relate back to, I wouldn't keep using this masculine feminine word. I might opt more for an active or passive, and more dynamic or more backseat. Like I often think of it in terms of the painting being the canvas, the very feminine, very zeros, and then the active being the paint splashed across the canvas. You couldn't have one without the other. You need them both to come together to make this beautiful harmony, and we have these paintings dotted all around our systems, all throughout our body, all throughout our expression, creative expression, our fashion, our sense, and it can change from day to day. So in these senses I'm feeling like, oh man, the teenagers that are calling themselves like, you must label me owl from now on, like they're getting it in some way, but then they're getting limited by the idea, no, but I do need a label. Please give me a label. I don't know how I'll survive unless you use my pronouns. And it's kind of just drifting us back down into that dualistic way of thinking, where it's not kind of opening, it's actually limiting and shutting us down. And it was inevitable. We are humans. That was always going to happen with any of these conceptual ideologies as they emerged. Very important with Libran energy. What are you attracted to? What do you find attractive in another? It's interesting how attraction is always just shot through with this idea that it must be sexual, or it must be jealousy, or it must be some kind of ussing and theming, like putting a distance between to be able to admire something, which is the nature of great art. You need to be able to step back to see it, but can you then take yourself away from that at the same time as involving yourself in that process? And half the time when we're attracted to something or someone, it's because we have that inside of us and we are seeing it blaringly obvious in the external world, and we're just wowed by it, but we're so affected and touched by it and wowed within because that is just in there, like knocking. It's very funny for me, the idea of having at the same time as I would perceive it as almost lots of little individual selves within, all of these 12 archetypes sort of knocking, trying to come out from within. That is just the human nature, to want to divide and separate and to kind of put things into boxes and compartmentalize. You know, we even do that in astrology when we talk about the different houses, and I just use that more as a framework to say, look, where is this planet moving within your chart at the moment? Just so you can get a bit more of this is the lens that's being put on this planet or this sign at the moment. So that's probably why it's playing out for me in a much more independent way instead of a far more collective field. It's very funny how I went in the 12th house, for me, August, summer period in Leo. I was surrounded by people all the time. I was never alone. I was always in a collective field of crowds, lots of crowds. And then the moment that my ascendant point was hit, I was back being my own company. The only person I see in a day is Richie, and it's that kind of acknowledgement of that flow of the universe that makes astrology really fun, and it makes life worth living, and it makes life really easy to let go of and just to ride, just to really enjoy the ride. And I really like Libra because although it's this dynamic masculine air energy, it really encompasses the whole, because it's very interested in understanding duality. It's there to help kind of balance these polarities, and that's exactly what we need to be doing within our consciousness to bring it all together. It's and not this or that, it's and and that's a freeing place to be. It's a really wonderful way to feel into the environment, because you don't have to pick a side and stand by it. You can literally be there like, whoa, in the middle of all of this and just observing. Just, you never see a particular negative or positive side to anything. You just see it is what it is. There's this old story about a man, who knows, I can't remember the exact chronology of the story, but he wants to board a plane. He goes to get on the plane and he left his passport. People say, how sad, how terrible, you've lost your passport. That very same plane then crashes and burns. He saved his life. People say, oh my god, amazing, how fantastic for you. And each time this kind of circumstance happens, this toing and froing of duality between the good and the bad and the good and the bad, each time he says, maybe so, maybe so, because you never know what's around the next bend, and what may seem positive to you in this moment may not even be that later. So it's very important that we are open to the flexibility of the universe and the changeability of the lived experience as being one thing or another. Because the human mind, and after all we will always be talking about the mind with any kind of air sign, is extremely malleable, extremely kind of flexible, and incredibly inconsistent. If you ever try to sit back and lean back on your mind as if it's going to give you any clear ideas and clear structure, it's always going to fail you, largely because the emotional body is too strong and too real and visceral, and the reality of a situation, you can convince yourself, this isn't bothering me, I'm not bothered by this, or I don't hold this prejudice, or I'm over it. And all of these different stories you can tell yourself, the body is going to tell you the truth. And the more there is this disparity between the two things, the less in balance you're going to be, and definitely the less in balance you're going to be able to see the world and have a clear perception. And it's all about clearing the perception, clearing those doors, those windows of perception, just so that you can really see the world as it is, not as you would love it to be, not as you perceive it to be so terrible, all these things, but actually as it is, which is always somewhere quite in the middle. Whether you believe in the goodness of humanity and where we will go and the potential, I mean, it's impossible for me not to have that optimistic thing, you know. It's a wonderful gift within my chart to have that Sagittarian quality that just knows it's all going to turn out right in the end. I just know, it's just something in my soul. It was just something that was gifted to me, even though I had no religion as a child, no doctrine, no anything to follow. I know in my heart where we are going is somewhere so beautiful, but it's up to us. And I definitely can see also the power in the statement that, you know, whilst one of us are in chains, we're all in prison. There's no escaping that fact that whatever happiness we achieve individually, until we really are open to all of the hatred and all of the destruction that we create on this planet, we will never all be happy. It's not all about being happy, it's about being conscious. And if you can at least be conscious and aware of what's going on, those kind of clean windows are going to make you act. They're going to make you do the necessary thing in the world naturally. You don't need to force it. It's going to be a very clear place to be standing from, and it's then going to make other people feel more comfortable or more uncomfortable within themselves, because they are forced to, you're just a mirror and everything is just reflected back at them. But you, in your center, in yourself, you know you're not looking for anything particular in the earth. You're just going to be satisfied with what is, because it is. There's no fighting it. And there's a tendency to initially have some resistance. It either goes this, from experience it's gone this way, either a big openness in the start and a big joy at finding that kind of peace existing, like where you can just be with someone and they're not going to do anything to you or take anything from you. It's very comforting. But then a lot of stuff gets triggered, because you are, when you're with a person who's very, very clean, you then start to get reminders about people in your life. You try to put makeup on, and very typical in a Libra sense of kind of glossing over things, everything's okay, and suddenly that is reflected back at you of no it wasn't, and then that can spiral. And consciousness isn't for everyone. And rapid conscious awakening, whether that be psychologically, emotionally, physically in the body, not everyone can handle that speed. And this definitely applies to diet. It needs to be, if you're wanting to clean the body, it needs to be slow and steady, wins the race. Not charging into a diet and not allowing the body. You kind of have to accept that there is filth within that needs to be cleared out, and that your vibration to a certain level is going to be filth. So it's kind of about raising your vibration, but not so high that your body is not compatible with that. It's like that that kind of grindingly slow, as it feels, evolution of the soul, but it's in line with the body, and there's no way that you can channel yourself up into the heavens unless you're really also going in equal measure down to the earth. It has to be going in both directions, and that's the key to Libra. And many times with Libra, it's, you know, there's this awakening of the throat, of the ajna, of the crown. It's all wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And then you hit a wall. You've hit a wall because you're not opening the heart, certainly not in the solar plexus, not in the sacral, neither the root. And all of that cord is an ancestral cord, which we will often throw away as being not of great value and not of great import. And it seems sometimes nicer just, you know, it's very important that we always look to the future, look upwards, but a lot of that gets into a state of imagination, whereas what you have in your body, what you have in terms of your lineage is all there. All the information is there, including all of the skills, working with your hands, working and putting yourself in different situations, environments and geographical locations. Different geographical locations can trigger your birth chart to activate. This happened to Oprah Winfrey when she moved to Chicago, and this is when her Jupiter midheaven was completely kicked in and she became this super huge wealthy success story. So I urge you to realize how many factors could be affecting your inner alignment, how many things could be pulling your attention off in one direction or another, which is likely to happen at this time because the Libra is very much learning from its environment about how to go within and deal with the inner self, with the soul, with the sense of self, because it doesn't feel that it has a self, it doesn't feel that it knows itself. I'm trying not to speak about the actual astrology so much in these videos in terms of what's happening with the individual planets, because there can be no blaming, there can be no, this is a Mercury retrograde having this effect on me. I really liked a meme I saw recently with a full moon, and someone's like, the full moon has brought out the worst in me, and the moon is like, sorry honey, deal with your own crap, don't blame it on me, I'm just here illuminating it for you. It's just bringing it up to the surface, but it wouldn't be something that you were suffering with unless it already existed within you. This is with triggering. We're only triggered because we have something inside that we can't bear to hear, that we can't bear to see, that we can't bear to face. And it really is face everything and rise. Once Libra learns this quality of sort of transcendentalness that is on the other side of the ego that we've kind of come down from the Leo pedestal, then it's more than happy to engage with the world and see it for the play and the dance that it is, and to really be a judge. And even sometimes in court cases you really observe the judge and you think, this is a very Saturnian place, yes, very much about control, but it's also something so sort of effervescent and above all the other layers of this kind of fighting, bickering. You're going to be ultimately respected because you have that position. Not saying that judges are enlightened, but certainly that Libra can take that stance of being that like very wise elf that is going to kind of discern what's happening and look very objectively at the facts and the figures. It's really in your own personal life, that separation between the mind and the chaos. No, the mind can be smoothed out and kind of seen as a tool that it is, which is that tool for discernment and organization. And then it's just here to tap into the body and help us release the emotions. I've been doing some dances with blindfolds. I was very inspired to wear a mask and then just let the body express itself as I danced, and just allowing, you know, the body to decide where I move, rather than like a really rigid system being forced upon the body, but asking the body, because the body isn't balanced as well. It's really not that we don't use all the same muscles. We lock ourselves in one way and then we overcompensate in another, and we get ourselves really in a bind, and it's so much easier than we think to really work with our body as our greatest tool. And it's so much more intelligent that we give it credit for, and it's so much louder than we give it credit for, cutting ourselves off and living up here with a screen here. We're just engaging the energy here and here and here and here, here and here and here and here, instead of coming right down into the feet and feeling how much wisdom there is in the feet. Of course, Libra is also associated with Venus. This is why I'm sitting in this really gorgeous part of the park with these enormous trees and just feeling nature being that polarity that I'm tuning in with, and realizing how much that is me. And not by me identifying as a tree, but me sitting with the tree and just letting its essence kind of filter through my systems. And that doesn't mean that I have to stop being Emma, stop being female, stop being the Sagittarian quality that I'm really wishing to tap into most days, but that I can just absorb all of the beneficial energy that it has to offer. Sometimes with astrology videos I always feel like it's a disclaimer upon a disclaimer, because there is no one size fits all, one complete kind of way of expressing the energy, because it really relates back to you and your own personal consciousness. So I ask you, how is your psyche? How is your mind? How are your emotions? And how are your relationships? How important are they to you? In what way are you investing in them? In what way are they a distraction for you? The true non-duality comes with the acknowledgement and experience of one layer of reality being in a state of absolute hell and distress and sadness and misery and destruction and comparison and fighting, while simultaneously there's another which is really full of love, really expansive, really beyond all of the things that I just mentioned, to the point where it just doesn't even sink in. It just kind of, everything bounces off. And this isn't you being selfish. If you are able to have this quality within yourself, this is you helping the collective, because you are being centered and you're not participating in that bickering, fighting, toing and froing and upping and downing and getting one over on each other. This whole world is just so repetitive, doesn't get us anywhere. It's always better to come back to love and feeling the most love, feeling the experience of the body as being a joyful thing and a loving place to be, and then questioning if it's not, because then it's not going to align with the kind of dreams that you have out there. So accept things as they are, move in the way you want things to be, because how you are now will dictate how you are tomorrow. And what you were yesterday doesn't exist anymore. It really doesn't. It's just the mind that holds on to that. There is nothing but this moment. There is nothing but this moment. Thank you so much for joining me here. I wish you all the best for this coming month. Don't allow yourself to be pulled off in any direction, just keep it in this balanced equinox state of being. The days are the most harmonious that they have ever been throughout the year, because we are in this perfect balance between night and day. So embrace that, engage with that, and the rest will just fall into place. So I thank you so much. Lots of love. Goodbye.